Hey, what's going on, guys? In this video I want to do two things. So first thing is I want to give you a guide on how to do the logbooks. A lot of people has been asking me to do one, and I know that not that many people have been playing the last league, the Expedition League, so I think it's gonna be pretty useful. And also, even if you played the last league, some things have changed. Not too many things, but still there are some differences. So I want to let you know how to do them right now. And the second thing is I want to show you the results of the test that I did, which is 60 logbooks with black scythe artifacts. Okay, so let's start with how to actually acquire the logbooks. So the best way is just to go to the TFT Discord, and here you can go to the bulk expedition category and just search for the people that are selling logbooks in bulk. So for example, this guy is selling druids logbooks for 45C, black scythe for 50C. Here you can see this guy already sold 13 for 50C with black scythe, druids, and blacks and Knights of the Sun go for like 90 to 100 chaos. Black scythe usually go for like 50 to 55, druids anywhere for 45 to 55, and no one is really selling Order of the Chalice, and no one really wants to run them. So if someone is selling them, probably I would say like 30 chaos, and most of them, as you can also see, are at least item level 81. And if you would ask me, is it worth to do the lower item levels? Probably not. The higher item level of the logbook, the more artifact you're gonna get, and people are mostly farming expedition to get logbooks in zones item level 85 anyway, so you're not gonna get too many of them on the market. Okay, so now let's look at the logbook. So here I do have one with 3 zones. So what that basically means is if you go to Dunning and you want to go to do the logbooks, you will have 3 different dig sites to choose from. So you can't do all of them, you can just do one. And each one of them have a layout. So there is Cemetery, Rotting Temple, and Volcanic Island. There is type of artifact it's gonna give you. So Knights of the Sun for exchanging item with Dunning, and this is Knights of the Sun, so this is the most expensive one, and that's because sometimes he will give you the logbooks to buy from him. The second one is Black Scythe, so for exchanging items with Tujen, and this is the second expensive one. And then there is Gwenen, which is for gambling, and a lot of people just try to get the Mage Bloods and Headhunters, so this is also a pretty expensive one. It's pretty much on the same level as Black Scythe, only a little bit cheaper. And again, the fourth one is Order of the Chalice, which is crafting with Rogue. And this is usually very nice at the beginning of a league, but as the league goes on, it becomes a very bad vendor. Okay, so first thing you always want to look at is the type of artifact. So for example, this one, Knights of the Sun, is the best one. Second thing is the layout, and I'm gonna talk about layouts a bit later because I want to first show you actual logbooks so you can understand better why certain layouts are better than the other. But for now, let's just say some layouts can give you more rewards, and they are just smaller or bigger, and you would just prefer to have smaller ones because everything is just closer to each other. And the last thing is implicit mods. So for example, Cemetery has area contains runic monster markers and number of monster markers. The Rotting Temple has additional suffix and so on. And usually this doesn't matter too much. You will go for the best artifacts and layouts anyway, so I wouldn't look at this part too much, but my personal favorites are the increased amount of artifacts, the quantity of artifacts dropped in the zone, and the range and size of the explosions. But other ones are also pretty nice. The worst one would probably be the increased amount of chest markers. And also, by the way, you can find logbook with implicit area contains a boss. Let me see if I actually have one somewhere to show you. I don't think I have one. So yeah, there will be the mod area contains, for example, Medved or something like that. So this will have a boss then. And these can go for like 1 exalt, 2 exalts, so make sure to check that one. Even if there is like a Knights of the Sun without a boss and there is Black Scythe with a boss guaranteed, you should probably go for the boss always. And the last thing is you actually can split these logbooks. So what I mean by that is you can go to Menagerie and you can buy split beasts. So Phenomenal Plague Arachnid. And you can use this beast to make a copy of a logbook, and then it will have a split tag, which basically means you can no longer split it, so you can only split it once. So if you buy a logbook with Knights of the Sun for 100 chaos, you can use this beast, and then you get a second one, so you pay less money for it, because if you look at the prices of split beasts, they go for like 35 chaos right now, and you also have to use 3 yellow beasts which go for like 3 chaos, so around 45 chaos to make a copy of a logbook. And again, for Knights of the Sun you pay around 100 C, so for 2, if you do it this way, you will pay like 70 chaos on average. And even something like Black Scythe, if you buy them for 55, it is worth to split them because you pay 10C less. And also, what I like to do is I like to focus on the good layouts. For example, this one is Cemetery and Knights of the Sun. So this is a really good one to split because it has a really nice layout, which is a Cemetery. And type of logbooks is also Knights of the Sun, which is also very nice. But for example, if I went here for something like Erotic Temple and Order of the Chalice, which is really bad layout and really bad type of artifacts, and let's not look at the second type of the layout, but if I had to go for this one, then it's probably not going to be worth it. So I like to split the really good one, and other ones with a bad layout and bad artifact, just run them without splitting, because it's not really worth to do. So now the last thing before I actually start doing a logbook, how would you want to choose a zone, like which one to run? Like, I would say always go for Knights of the Sun. If logbooks has Knights of the Sun, and if it's a really bad layout, like Erotic Temple for example, is one of the worst layouts, and it was Knights of the Sun, I would still go for Knights of the Sun. For example, this one has Scrablands with Black Scythe, which Scrablands is decent layout, Black Scythe is obviously also decent, so I would not go for the Erotic Temple with Order of the Chalice, which is the worst one, so this is obvious choice. But for example here, Black Scythe Mercenaries is again one of the best ones, but Mountain Sign is actually very bad layout, and Erotic Temple is also very bad layout. So for both Black Scythe you have a bad layout, and Scrablands is actually pretty nice. It's not the best, not the worst, and Druids is a bit cheaper than Black Scythe, but in this case scenario I probably would go for the Druids of Broken Circle, because again Scrablands it's much better layout, and the price difference between Black Scythe and Druids is not that big. If for example there was Mountain Sign with Knights of the Sun, I would still go for Knights of the Sun. You pretty much always want to go for the Knights, and if you have to choose between Druids and Black Scythe, you can look at the layouts and maybe sometimes look at the implicit, but it shouldn't matter too much. And you pretty much never want to go for the order of the chalice. And also, by the way, you can roll these implicit with blessed orbs because they are implicit modifiers, so you can use it. And for example, here I'm going for Cemetery, Knights of the Sun, so I don't care about the other ones, so you can use it. And I like to go for like 70%, so here I would go for at least 30 and 30. 30 and 26 is still pretty nice, so I would go for this one. And you can also use the alchemy to make them a bit more rewarding. Roll for decent modifiers. And now let's do one logbook so I can show you an example how I am running them. So again, I would go for the Cemetery, Knights of the Sun. Okay, so now I am gonna explain why the layouts matter. And the first thing about layout is the type of rewards. So there are special remnant modifiers like this one. Runic monsters have a 10% chance to drop Catalyst, and this is specific to this zone. Only certain zones can have this type of remnants, and this is okay one. It's not the best one, but there is also let me find one. This one. Chests have chance to contain simulacrum splinters. I believe Cemetery is the only one that can drop simulacrum splinters. I might be wrong. I'm double checking here. Yeah, I believe it is the only one. And this actually has been nerfed. I believe last league you were getting much more simulacrum splinters. Like for example, the Shipwreck Reef is giving the Scarabs remnant, and that one also has been nerfed. They are still pretty nice, but they are not as rewarding as in last league. So first thing what I am doing when I go into the logbook, I like to just run around and look at the remnants and find like the most optimal pathing. And in case if you don't know, the remnants only work on the monsters after the explosion. So if I go for example this one, and then I go here and go for this one, this monster is gonna have effect of both remnants, and this monster, so from these skulls, is only gonna have this one because this one is exploding later. And yeah, these markers are basically runic monster markers, so if you go for this remnants, these monsters are gonna give you these rewards. And obviously you have chests with different reward markers, like for example this is the fragment, this is the currency, gems, and so on. And by the way, there is the expedition chest, which is the only blue one, and this is gonna drop you the artifacts dependent on the layout. So again, this is the Knights of the Sun, so this is gonna give the Knight of the Sun artifacts. But it actually, I believe it can't drop the reroll items, which is a Burial Medallion. Burial Medallions can only drop from the skulls. And this is one of the biggest reason I pretty much never care about the chests. I am mostly focusing on the runic monsters and on the remnants that are buffing monsters. So for example, pack size is pretty nice. Okay, so again, first thing I am doing always is just running around looking at the remnants. So pack size, for example, decent. Runic monsters have a chance to drop stack decks is actually one of the best one. Quantity of artifacts is the one that I am always looking for, because I am trying to focus on the artifacts, and especially dropped by monsters. So let's look at the other one. So this is Catalyst, which is not the best. Jewelry, Catalyst. And also at the same time I'm looking at the prefix, because there is one mod which is very rare, but you can find it, which is runic monsters are duplicated. And if you find this one as a blue text, again prefix, you always want to go for that one first. It will basically double your rewards. So again, quantity of artifacts, it's a very nice one. Quantity of items is okay. Currency is also a pretty nice one. So I already am trying to make a route, so I think I will go first here for this stack decks and quantity of artifacts, then maybe go to the bottom. But I still want to look at the top, because there might be runic monsters are duplicated somewhere here. And this is rarity, so it's a bad one. Rarity, runic monsters, item dropped by them are linked is not that great. Here's the quantity of artifacts, but it's very far away from all of the other ones, so I'm not really gonna focus on that one. This is also quantity of artifacts, but dropped by chest, so this is not that great. Again, rarity, stack decks is pretty nice, but again, it is also very far from the other ones. And in terms of the prefixes that are pretty bad, obviously you don't want to go for immune to certain type of damage that you are dealing. For example, I am dealing lightning damage, so I don't want to go for this one. But for example, this one, 50% chance to block spell and attack damage is actually a very bad one if you combine two of them. Because monster will basically have 85% chance to block, because cap is 75 and here is +5 to maximum, so they will have 85% chance to block, which makes them very hard to kill. There's also a similar one which says monster have 30% chance to avoid damage, and if you stack 3 of them, that's basically 90%, which is gonna make them really hard to kill. Another dangerous one is monster are regenerating life, 30% life every 4 seconds. Again, if you stack a lot of them, they're gonna just constantly heal if you don't one-shot them. And the last hard one is just straight up monsters take 30% less damage, which again with 3 that would be 90% less damage. And if you stack a lot of different ones like block, double block, like 60% avoid and 60% reduce damage, and there's also another one which gives monster resist, so like let's say 30-60 resist, even without immunity you can make monster pretty much immune to damage. And this is why I believe one of the best builds you can go for when you are trying to do the logbooks is the Toxic Rain or any other damage over time builds, because again, this is block, so damage over time doesn't care about this. The chance to avoid damage also doesn't really matter for damage over time builds, and same for like a lot of other really difficult remnants. Okay, so now let's start. So I'm gonna go again to the left, while on the way I'm gonna try to hit as many skulls and chests as possible. Here is pack size. Now I'm gonna go for the stacked decks. Quantity of artifacts from monsters. Unfortunately, I can't hit this skull. And now I will go to the bottom, while at the same time I'm gonna hit the skulls. Here I can hit these two. Catalyst is okay, so I'm gonna hit it. And by the way, if you are destroying things like trees, it doesn't really do anything. The only things you care about when you want to destroy is the zones that are locked behind the wall, like for example here. You see on the minimap there's a zone here, so this zone is gonna have some chests. It's not that big of a deal if you're not gonna destroy the wall, but they can be pretty nice. And also here you can see on the minimap the marker for underground zone, and it is pretty much the same. It's just gonna have some additional chests. Now let's continue to the bottom, because I know there is the quantity of artifacts here. I could have went through this side, maybe that was actually even better, but let's just continue here. This is also one of the bad ones. Monster do not grant flask charges, but it's not the end of the world. So I'm gonna hit this one. And now I actually don't remember what was here. Quantity of items, I think I'm gonna go for it. And by the way, quantity of items does not work on the artifacts from what I know. And once you have some decent remnants, for example, now I do have, you can check by the way here, what do you have? I have already 100% quantity of artifacts, a 50% chance for currency, 35% chance for stacked decks, so I have a pretty nice remnants. Now I am pretty much focusing on just hitting as many skulls as possible, so I no longer care about hitting like simulacrum splinters and so on. But if I have them on the way and at the same time I could hit here, for example, a skull, I would obviously go for it. But yeah, let's go here. It looks like there isn't too many schools at the end, so this is not the best outcome. Here's one more. Here there are 2 and some chests. Here are 2. So let's go here. And last one. Can I hit one additional monster somewhere? And also, by the way, every video I make, people point out that you can press V to start explosion, but I know about it, but I'm just used to clicking this button, so I'm just gonna continue doing it, and after every single video I know people are always gonna say that you can do that, but yeah. And at the end, before actually detonating explosives, I always double check if I hit something bad. And for example, in this one there is immune to cold, which I don't care about. There is 50% chance to block. As long as I have only one of them, it is fine. And everything else doesn't really matter. So now I'm gonna explode. So logbooks are pretty time consuming, because first thing you have to do is you have to look at your route, then you have to actually run around and place the explosives, and then you have to run around and kill the monsters, and then you run one more time to loot stuff. Obviously you can lose things in between killing, but it depends on you how you want to do it. And in terms of the monsters, I actually hate the ones that have shields in front of them, because you pretty much have to run close to them so they drop their shields, and then you can actually start dealing damage to them. And this is another reason why I think damage over time builds are very nice, because yeah, you don't have to actually hit them. Well, it depends, maybe your damage over time builds actually is dependent on hit, then you would not be the best for it. And also monsters have the ward mechanic, which is basically damage from hits absorbed. So again, damage over time doesn't care about this. So yeah, I actually really like doing logbooks with something like Toxic Rain. Oh, here there was a school, I didn't notice it. So as you can see, there was a lot of stack decks, and that's because of the one remnant, 35% chance to get a stack deck from a monster. Okay, so I believe that's pretty much it. Let's look at the profit. So 4 burial medallions, they go for like 8 chaos each, 15 stack decks, and some additional loot. And this might not look like a lot of rewards, but you can use burial medallions with the artifacts that I dropped, because you can't see actually artifacts on the ground. They will be straight up in your expedition locker, and you can spend that to maybe get some more things. So let's look what I can get here. I will most of the time just buy astragalis, exotic coinages. You can also buy some discounted other artifacts.
Interested in something else, are you?
Let's see if I'm gonna get the logbook.
Interested in something else, are you?
And I did actually get one. So I am out of artifacts, so I had to run a few more of them, but this is Shipwreck Reef, Knights of the Sun. So I basically got my money back, because I just got another logbook with Knights of the Sun. And plus even more. Obviously you're not always gonna be this lucky. Sometimes you actually are gonna drop a lot of the burial medallions, and if you get a boss, and bosses can sometimes spawn randomly, the bosses drop between 10 to even like 50 reroll items. And you also, when you are doing bosses, by the way, you want to explode the remnant that increase the quantity of artifacts drops by monster before actually doing the boss, because that's gonna increase the amount of the reroll item it's gonna drop. Okay, so now let's look at the test that I did. Actually, before I do that, let me show you the layouts. Now that I talked about the layouts and you saw the one logbook and how the layout looks like. Here is my basically ranking of all of the different layouts. So I personally love Forest Ruins because it is a very small layout, so all of the remnants are very close together, and you can very often like hit pretty much the entire map with your explosives, and sometimes you are left with like even 3 or 5 and you don't really have anything to do with them. The bad part about this layout is it has a really bad reward type, so it has Abyss, so jewels and fragments rewards, which are not the best. Shipwreck Reef has the Scarab rewards, and it's not like insane in terms of the monsters, and it's also pretty big, so it's not the best layout in terms of like how many artifacts you drop, but because you can get scarabs, it is a pretty nice one. Dried Riverbed has the Legion Splinters, which is okay, and it's actually a pretty nice layout. Usually monsters are pretty close together and there's a lot of monster markers, so it is pretty nice. Cemetery used to be, in my opinion, tier 1 last league, but because now you get much less Simulacrum Splinters, I don't think it's that great anymore. It's still pretty nice and I would still go for it most of the time, but it's no longer that great. Bluffs, Karoi Wargraves, and Urzal Outskirts, Battleground Graves, Val Temple, all of them are just nice layout, nice solid layouts. They don't have like any special like super great rewards. They are not too small. I think Val Temple is the only small one, but it doesn't have any good rewards. But it is a pretty small layout, so a lot of remnants are close together. But these are decent in size. There is decent amount of remnants in them, and rewards are okay. Usually you will get like one good reward types. For example, here there's Legion. This one actually doesn't have any of them, but it's also decently small. Here is a Legion, and Karoi Wargraves have both currency shards and fossils, which is very nice. Volcanic Islands also have fossils and currency shards, but I actually don't really like this layout that much, so I ranked it as tier 3, and same for Scrublands. It is pretty open. It has a decent amount of monsters, but it has some cliffs and stuff, so the routing in this one can be pretty bad. And Desert Ruins is very open layout. It's kind of the same as Mountainside, but not as bad. They usually are pretty empty, don't have that many monster markers. But actually Divination card rewards are pretty decent. One time I actually dropped the Brother Stash from one of these rewards, so it's not that bad. And Rotting Temple and Sarn Slums are really bad. They have a lot of dead ends. They don't have that great of a reward, so I would avoid them 100% of the time if I can. Okay, so in terms of the test that I did 60 logbooks with Black Scythe as a reward. I did buy them for like 55 chaos, and again I was splitting them, so I ended up with 60, so I bought like 30 and splitted them, so I ended up with 60, but in terms of actually prices for them, I still counted all of the 60 as 55 chaos. And here are all of the rewards. So this is the things that I dropped from the actual logbooks, and I used all of the Tujen artifacts, so the Black Scythe artifacts, for Haggling with him. And after I was out of artifacts, I still have 136 coinages, which I can sell. And here are all of the items that I did buy from Tujen for artifacts. So as you can see, there is much more rewards just from Tujen himself than from the rewards. Even though the rewards are again still nice, there's quite a lot of scarabs and so on. Just amount of currency you get from the trading with Tujen makes it worth to just focus fully on getting the most amount of artifacts, rather than just getting the rewards from the logbook itself. But at the same time, also like trading with him can be really annoying, and it takes quite a long time. So I actually did spend 3 hours just to trade with him, and the logbooks themselves, actually no, it took me 4 hours to trade with Tujen, and logbooks took me 9 hours. So it's almost 50% more time to run 60 logbooks if you're gonna trade with him. And to quickly give you a rundown how I was trading with him, so as you can see, I did run out of the greater artifacts. I still have quite a lot of lesser and common, and I think I had like more than 50k because I actually had to haggle with him before finishing the test, because the cap for artifact is 50k. So I think I ended up with like 60k of lesser and common, like 30k greater, and 5,000 grand, I don't remember exactly. And yeah, I did run out of greater ones. And when you buy from them, what I like to do first is, first of all, just check the prices of the items. Because for example, here you might look at the silver coin and you think no one really is using silver coin, so this is a bad currency. Same for alteration, it's not that great of a currency. And alchemy, a lot of people are using alchemies to alchemy them up, so it's a pretty nice one. But when you actually look at the prices of them, alchemy is 12 or 14 to 1 chaos, and when you look at the alteration, it is actually 5 to 1, so it's more than double. And if you look at the silver coins, which usually people don't care about, it is actually 4 silver coin to 1 chaos. So out of all these 3 currencies, silver coin is actually the best one, and as you can see here, Tujen will very often give you like 20 of them. So same for rogue markers, I think 250 is like 1 chaos. 3 ancient shards, you might think that's not that great, but if you look again at the prices, the ancient orb is actually 22 chaos, so this is pretty much 3 chaos. So it's better, these 3 ancient shards are better than 10 alchemy. And the second thing I like to look at is the type of artifacts you actually have to spend on the items. So as you can see here, I still have a ton of lesser artifacts, and I was spending them pretty much like that. Like I wasn't even haggling when I was spending lesser, and I still have the most amount of artifacts left as the lesser ones. So if for example you see things like chance orbs, which usually are not that great, they're like 15 to 1 chaos, but if they are for lesser artifacts, you can still buy them. If it's for common or greater, I would definitely skip a lot of the rewards. And grants are usually somewhere in between. You still want to have decent amount of them left, because sometimes you will get an offer of 1 exalt for grand artifacts, or like a cortex or something. So you want to have a decent amount of them saved up if you get the rare buy, but usually you will not get that many offers for them, so I like to spend a lot of them. Okay, so now let's look at the spreadsheet. So I did around 60 logbooks. They cost me 55c per. I was bless orbing the implicits, and also, by the way, you always want to bless orb before splitting, because the splitted logbooks, both of them are gonna have the same roll, so you basically are gonna spend less bless orbs this way. So bless orb first, then split. So I did spend around 300 bless orbs, and just for alcheming logbooks I did spend like 150c. So total cost was 3.5k. It took me 9 hours to do all of the logbooks, 4 hours to trade with Tujen, which was very boring, but it had to be done. And I did drop 576 coinages. I used 440, and I am left with 136. So in terms of the drops, so again, just the items I dropped from the logbooks themselves. And by the way, I didn't count the cluster jewels, and I actually still didn't count the contract and blueprints. And in terms of the chest rewards, contract and blueprints are in my opinion the best chests you can get. Look at the amount of the blueprints and contracts I got. This is probably like few hundred chaos just in this, and again, I didn't count them as the profit. So this should be like probably 6k, not 5k. And again, I also didn't price check the cluster jewels. And from Tujen, so the stuff that I bought from him, as you can see here, I bought in total 8 exalts, and a lot of them came from the exalted shards. And from drops, I only got 5 exalts. So I got in total 8k, so in total that's 13,000. Total cost was 3.5k, so profit is 10,000 chaos. So I did profit 70 exalts, which means I got 5.3x per hour, which is actually a very good outcome. Logbooks are, to be honest, pretty easy to run, especially if you apply some kind of damage over time, and always you can just avoid really bad remnants, again, like block, dodge, and so on. And you don't have to like spend some additional currencies, scarabs, and so on, like rolling your watchstones, like you have to do with a lot of other strategies. So here you just buy logbooks, split them, and you just run them. So this is pretty chill, but I would say it is very boring also strategy, because there's a lot of downtime running around, checking the mods, and then trading with Tujen. And if you would ask me which logbooks are the best to run to make the most amount of profit, like the Black Scythe or Knights of the Sun and so on, to be honest, I have no idea. I just tested this one, but I would say the Black Scythe are gonna be probably the best one to run, because they are pretty safe and you just get straight up currency from Tujen. You don't have to worry about RNG, like if you're gonna get logbooks from the Night Sun, and from Gwenen if you're gonna get like a Headhunter or Mageblood from trading. Obviously you can still sell the coinages or the Astragalis from druids, but you will still have a lot of artifacts left and you don't really have anything to do with them because you can't sell them. So yeah, that's gonna be it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.